The FIRST program, also known as Coordinated Specialty Care for First Episode Psychosis, was launched in 2015 with the support of a federal SAMHSA grant. The program is designed to wrap services around someone who has experienced an episode of psychosis as quickly as possible. To understand what the program does, you must first understand what schizophrenia is.
Schizophrenia is a neurobiologic illness. About 1% of the population could experience this illness, and it typically manifests in the late teens, early 20s. So one of the signs of schizophrenia is psychosis. That's a symptom. It means you're not connected with reality in certain aspects of your life. So a person could present very well in many ways, but they could have distorted thinking. One of the ways could be hallucinations. Typically with schizophrenia, we're thinking auditory hallucinations. They're hearing things that other people aren't hearing, and it could be command, it could be commentary, derogatory comments. Some people also experience delusions. So a delusion is a fixed belief that's not consistent with reality. So a paranoid delusion could be, I'm being followed, I'm being poisoned, but that's not really happening. It could happen, it's not happening, so that's a delusion. A bizarre delusion is not a judgment, it just means it's not consistent with our cultural norms. So right now, if you think little green men are transmitting radio waves from your left ear, right now that's not consistent with our cultural norms. Grandiose delusion, self-explanatory, and there are many more. Disorganization could also be consistent with schizophrenia. Not everyone has disorganization, but it could manifest in how they speak or how they dress. The negative symptoms are not a judgment in any way. It just means the withdrawn symptoms. The ones we talked about previously are positive symptoms, expressed emotion. Negative symptoms is more withdrawn, flat affect, not a lot of facial expression, monotone, not a lot to say, yes, no, monosyllabic responses, avolition. Not that the person's being difficult, that they don't want to go with their care manager to do laundry or go to the grocery store. They're truly overwhelmed, and it's very difficult to take the next step.
Bill Baumkamp is the FIRST team lead.
Most of our referrals come in high school age or college age, and they have been recently been diagnosed with either a schizophrenia spectrum illness or have experienced psychosis for the first time, typically within 6 months. So we want to intervene as early as possible. We want to minimize the loss of functioning.
Research has shown that getting people into treatment quickly can prevent a more severe illness, and that is the key to the FIRST program.
We would wrap around services, which includes meeting the psychiatrist, individual counseling, case management, employment support with education, and family education. And I think family education is a really big piece to FIRST. We want the whole support system to understand what's happening.
One of the families the FIRST team has helped is the Stock family. Their son Christopher was diagnosed with schizophrenia when he was 17.
Well, it's a devastating diagnosis, and what you think your reality is going to be changes immediately upon hearing it. And when we first heard that Christopher had schizophrenia, it's like all you can think about are the stereotypes and the terrible things you hear on the news about people with it. And we were just floundering, didn't know what to do. He wasn't doing well. And then when we got into the FIRST program and talked to the doctors, he got involved with the care managers. They were able to help us see there is a way forward. That you can have a life, you can have goals, you can succeed, you can be a productive part of society. It doesn't have to be what most people think of as what schizophrenia is. And I just don't see how Christopher would be where he is without the FIRST program.
One of the key components to the FIRST program are the excellent care managers. Brooke has been working with Christopher for 1.5 years.
My job as a FIRST care manager is to make sure that clients are feeling safe and comfortable with me so that I can work on getting them out into the community and work on the isolation, because when they come to us, they're feeling very scared and anxious.
Christopher was very paranoid when he was first diagnosed, and he pretty much spent all of his time in his room. He was afraid of leaving the room. Nothing was safe. And the care managers came and met with him, and they got him downstairs, and then they got him outside on the driveway, and then they'd get him walking in the neighborhood. And I think they really helped him move out of our house, move out of the neighborhood, get back into life. They gave him the realization that he also should have goals, that the diagnosis of schizophrenia doesn't mean everything you hoped and dreamed for, it needs to come to an end. And I think he got that message from them on a routine basis. I mean, he had contact with them several times a week, I think, in the beginning. When he had problems, he could text them and someone would get back with him. When we were struggling with how things were going, he would text them and they would get in touch with us, and they have included us, even though he's a young adult, you know, especially in the beginning. They've included us as part of whatever's going on with therapy, so we know how to deal with him because it was all new to us too.
Dr. John Wyrick is a member of the first team and Christopher's psychiatrist.
When I first met, he was not in a good place. He had no emotion in his face, no smiling, nothing. The voices were overwhelming. He thought that people were making fun of him all the time, which is difficult because when you make a joke with someone like that and they don't get it because their abstract abilities are poor, they think you're laughing at them, not with them. He was dysphoric. He was just miserable. He had this feeling of discomfort all the time, you know. Since then, he's able to smile. He's able to laugh. He's able to understand jokes. He really has taken his mental health to heart and has come a really long way. So
Sarah Henry is the employment specialist on the first team. She was instrumental in helping Christopher get his job.
So the first time that I met with Chris and we talked about possibly looking for a job, he thought it was a pretty far-fetched idea. He really could not see himself working. So we took baby steps. We volunteered together. We made a resume with that volunteer experience. I showed him jobs I thought he might like. We practiced interview skills. And after 2 years of baby steps, he was finally ready to start applying for jobs. There were a lot of times when I met with Chris and he would get really down on himself, and I would say to him, I wished he could see himself the way we see him. He's so smart and sweet and resilient and just a joy to work with.
Jane recently ran into an old friend.
She was asking if he'd gone to school, and I said no, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia, because we decided we're not going to act like it's anything to be ashamed of. And just I could just see it on her face, but it's like what everyone thinks when they hear schizophrenia. I don't know that we would have gotten to that point without first, where you can feel like it's who you are. It's nothing to be ashamed of.
There have been times when I've talked to parents and they were really scared about their child's future, and I've said, if it were my son or daughter, I would absolutely want them working with GCB and the first team. It's the best place that they could be.
I feel very bad for anybody who doesn't have access to a program like the first program, because I don't know where we would be without them, and I don't know how other families who don't have the support, the education, I don't know how they live with this successfully.